Hey, welcome back to the Montreal Man Show. I'm your host, Joseph. And this is going to be another one of my little Bloc Canada block sort of videos. Mostly because there's something on my mind lately that people don't seem to talk about. And it's one of the things that when I was a kid, we were always told, you work, you get your deductions, you get your paycheck, you get your deductions, and you can eventually retire at 60, 65. But the sad reality is, you probably can't. Now, the reason why I say this, because it came up not too long ago, someone said, it's like I have 9 months to go before I can hit 60 and get my Canada pension, my CPP pension. And for the most part, I didn't think about it. I work for a living. I'm not quite working 40 hours a week. And one thing I've talked about before is there's an ageism in this country that you get to a certain point, job market's not good for you. Anyone over 55 right now knows full well the Canadian job market's not great for someone your age. But that made me start thinking about, what would I get if I did apply to get my CPP at 60? So I went to the Canada.ca site and I looked it up. And you don't get that much money, not enough to live off of. So for example, when I looked up how much you could get, it's kind of depressing because, for example, in 2025, the maximum monthly benefit, the maximum you could get if you retire at 65 would be $1,433. That's the maximum you could get at 65 if you retire this year. The average, though, for most people at 65 would be $808. Think about that, okay? If you're 65 this year and you decide to retire your CPP, you're probably going to get about $800. And if you look at, even before that, say you want to retire at 60, you're looking at anywhere from about $540 a month to about $750 a month, depending on how much money you've contributed over all the years, if you retire at 60. Now, you think about that, okay? So say 65, $808 on average, according to the government itself, is what you could expect to get from your pension. Now, if you think about it, what's the average rent in Canada? I'm not talking about in certain cities. I'm saying overall. Like, for example, a studio apartment, for the most part, I think the average is about $1,348 per month. A one-bedroom across Canada averages about $1,600 a month. A two-bedroom is like $1,900. A three-bedroom is about $2,265 per month. And that's like across the board. In some cities, for example, you're looking at $2,152 per month, period, even for like a one-bedroom apartment, especially in the bigger cities. So you think, can you live on, say, $800 a month pension? No, you can't. So if you plan on retiring, you're not going to have enough money. In other words, we're in a country now where you cannot afford to retire unless you started putting money aside back when you were 20 and invested it. You're not going to have money to retire. And more Canadians are in that boat, especially Generation X. And especially, for example, a lot of people in their 20s now, they're not going to have a retirement. You're going to have to keep working and working and working. Because the other option is, if you're working in your 20s and you put as much money as you can, you're still having to pay rent. That's extremely high because housing costs in this country are insane. You probably won't have much of a social life or even much of anything to do because you'll be working to pay your bills and maybe trying to save a little bit for when you do retire. And that's the problem. That's the sad reality of Canada. We have a country that is broken in so many ways. And part of the problem with this is if you think about it, they want you to retire at 65, right? But they always said for years, you shouldn't spend more than 35% of your income on housing. Well, the sad fact is more and more people are spending 50 to 70% of their housing because the housing costs are so expensive. If you look at Vancouver, for example, you have people sharing laneway houses because they can't afford anything else. You have students literally sharing 7-bedroom apartments in Toronto that aren't really 7-bedroom apartments because it's just the way the economy is. And that's the problem. Our government has not fixed the economy. They've let housing prices go insane, but no one makes as much money. And I know you can look up stats saying, well, the average Canadian makes about $50,000 a year on average. But still, if you think, if you're paying $2,000 a month in rent, you need to have at least about a $4,000 income per month to be in that 30% bracket. Most people don't make that. I think the average, according to the government, is that you need $29,000 to live, to pay rent and everything else. And that's disturbing. Now, what really got me thinking about this is, why isn't the government trying to fix this? And so I looked in a bit further at a few more things, and some of the things I also discovered were pretty shocking. For example, do you know that Canada in 2022-2023 fiscal year spent $8.1 billion in foreign aid? That's right. Our country in 2022 to 2023 spent a record high $8.1 billion to increase its foreign aid. And it's going to be doing that going more forward. Now, it's not just like, support for the Ukrainians with the Russian invasion. It's also to help with gender equality, reducing poverty around the world, and everything else. But why aren't you helping the Canadians here at home? You think about it. We have Canadians who can't afford housing. You have a pension that is, honestly, it's an insult. I mean, you work over 40 years of your life to be told, oh, we're going to give you on average maybe $800 a month for pension, when your average rent's about $2,000. So think about that. There's $8.1 billion in 2022-23 in foreign aid. Well, currently right now in Canada, there's only 40.1 million Canadians, roughly. Okay, so it's roughly 40 million Canadians. Somehow we are dishing out foreign aid to $8.1 billion. And nothing's fixing our pension problems. I have 2 daughters. They're both in their 20s. I am worried about them when they get older. I myself will never be able to retire. I've looked up how much I've contributed over the years, and I'm going to be one of those Canadians at 60. I probably will have to get my pension just to supplement my income. Oh, and by the way, if you don't know, your pension is taxable income. Old age security at 65 isn't. So, and that's the saving grace for some people, is that if you hit old age security, well, that you can get a little bit more money than that. But this is the thing. When you think that $8.1 billion in 2022-2023 was sent to help other countries, who's helping us? Think about it. A lot of Canadians want to retire at age 60. They're not going to happen, because it's not going to happen because they just can't afford it. Most people will never be able to afford to retire at 60 or 65. You'll have to retire when you physically no longer be able to work anymore. So this is the solution I have. This is what I think we should do. Cut back on foreign aid. We don't need to be spending $8.1 billion on foreign aid when we have problems here. So here's a crazy idea for the government. How about, well, you take some of that money out of the $8.1 billion in foreign aid. How about this? How about you do this? There's only 40 million Canadians, really. How about you say, okay, every Canadian over the age of 21, here's $1 million. Put it aside for your retirement. So instead of doing foreign aid, how about domestic aid? Let's help Canadians. Let's make it so that every Canadian has that nest egg of $1 million so that when they do retire, they have something. Because the pension way it is now, it's almost an insult. You spend years and years of your life paying into the pension to be told, oh yeah, you're going to get a pension, but it won't even pay your rent. So that's an idea. Hey, government, instead of taking $8.1 billion and giving it away to other countries, help ourselves first. Let's help Canadians first. Every Canadian at the age of 21 and up, here's $1 million put aside. This way you have money for a retirement. Another thing you could do as well is make it so that the minimum pension you get per month at even age 60 is enough to cover your rent. But that's the thing, is people don't think about that. I mean, I'm going to tell my daughters, if you can, start saving now. Invest now. Because at this rate, no one's going to be able to retire anymore unless you're a government politician. And there's something else too. Here's a fact. You have these people in politics for all these years to get a government pension, a politician's pension, not a government employee's pension. I'm talking a politician's pension. You have this, I'll do my 8 years in politics so I get $1 million pension. How about politicians have to be like every other Canadian? You get basically what the average Canadian gets for a retirement pension. I bet if you made the politicians have to accept that wonderful choice, you'd have a lot of politicians saying, hey, we have to change the pension program. We have to make it so that people, when they do retire at 60 or 65, can actually afford to pay their rent instead of having to keep them working until they drop dead. So yeah, there's my solution. That's why I honestly think that it's time for Le Bloc Canada, a Canada Bloc political party. And trust me, if I had some financial backing, I would run for office now, especially here in Vanier. Because I honestly think we need someone like me, people like you, to start speaking up saying, hey, enough with giving money to other countries. We fix our problems here at home first, then we'll help other countries. We have to cut back on $8.1 billion in foreign aid when we can't even spare, say, $40 million to help Canadians have a retirement. And that's it. That's my rant for today, for now. Hope you guys are doing better. Hang in there. As I say in my other channel, do your best to stay healthy. It's not easy. And even though our country is it's a sad reality of Canada right now, you still have to somehow find a reason to smile every day, fight that depression. So do your best to stay happy, of course, and try looking on the good side of things. I know I'm a very negative person when it comes to looking at the world, but I'm trying to think, hey, if enough people do this, it's a good way to stay positive. But that's it. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive, and it's time that we actually have a new political party that's actually going to say, hey, Canadians first, for Canadians. Let's cut back on the billions of dollars foreign aid. Let's help our own country first. Let's help Canadians here. Not to sound mean. Make it so that the Canada pension, at age 60, you have enough money to pay your rent. Fix the housing problems. It's like we have to start controlling the insane housing rates that keep on going up for people who rent. Even people with mortgages. Most people can't afford to buy a house. People of my generation, only a handful have a house. I look at people in their 20s and 30s. They're hooped. They're not be able to get a house, really. It's going to be very minority. It's going to be like generational houses. So yeah, we need to have a pension that literally pays your rent if you need to have to pay rent, or pay your mortgage if you actually have a mortgage, so that when you retire at 60 or 65, you're not starving, you're not being forced to work until you drop dead. Another thing is too, take $100 million out of that $8.1 billion in foreign aid and say, every Canadian over 21, here's $1 million, put it aside so that you retire at 60, 65, or invest it. That's what we should do. And that's it for me today. That's enough of a rant. Please like and share the videos. Yeah, let me know in the comments what you think of my concept for the Bloc Canada, the Canada Bloc, a political party that puts Canadians first, fixing our problems here first. And we'll see you next time I have another rant on my mind. Until then, take care of yourselves.